The room was decorated with balloons, streamers, and a large banner that read, "Good luck, Sarah." The smell of cake and coffee filled the air, and soft music played in the background. Laughter and cheerful voices echoed as people gathered around, sharing stories and taking photos. But Sarah stood quietly near the window, holding a paper cup of juice, her mind far from the noise around her. After 10 years at the company, today was her last day. And while everyone was smiling, clapping, and thanking her, Sarah felt a wave of emotions crashing inside her. Excitement, sadness, and something else she couldn't quite name. She looked around at the people who had been her colleagues for a decade. Some were old friends, others had joined more recently, but all of them had shared something with her. Days filled with coffee-fueled mornings, tight deadlines, boring meetings, and the occasional office joke. Yet now, as she was about to leave, she realized how much had been left unsaid, not just by her, but by everyone. She smiled as James, her teammate, gave a short speech. Sarah has been the heart of our team. Her ideas, her dedication, her energy. We'll miss them all, but more than that, we'll miss her presence. Thank you, Sarah, for everything. The room clapped, and Sarah nodded, trying to hold back tears. But deep down, she thought about the early days when she first joined. Back then, she was nervous and shy. She used to eat lunch alone, scrolling through her phone, pretending to be busy. No one really talked to her much, and she was too scared to start a conversation. It took weeks before someone finally invited her to join the lunch table. That simple invitation meant the world to her. She thought of Rebecca, who stood across the room now, chatting with someone. They had worked together for years. They had exchanged thousands of emails and sat through countless meetings. Yet they had never really talked about life outside the office. Sarah knew Rebecca had a daughter and loved baking, but they had never gone out for coffee, never shared more than small talk. Why hadn't they? She walked to the table and picked up a slice of chocolate cake, but she didn't feel like eating. Her thoughts kept pulling her back in time. She remembered the long nights working late on the Jackson project, the stress of presenting in front of the board, and the rush of pride when their team won the company award. So many moments had come and gone. So many stories remained in the corners of the office, whispered only to the walls. There was Mark, who always cracked jokes during meetings. Everyone laughed, but no one ever asked him how he was doing. One day, Sarah found him sitting alone in the break room, staring at the floor. He looked sad, but when she asked, he just smiled and said he was tired. She never asked again. Maybe she should have. As the party went on, people came over to hug her, take pictures, and wish her well. Someone handed her a gift, a photo frame with a collage of team pictures. She smiled. "Thank you so much," she said softly. It was thoughtful, and she would treasure it. But what she really wanted was a conversation, a real one. She thought about what she could have said over the years, words that were stuck in her throat during busy days or lost in the noise of deadlines, like, "You inspire me," or I'm grateful for your help, or even I had a bad day today. So many chances to connect had passed because everyone was too busy, too tired, or too afraid to be vulnerable. As she looked around, she realized the office wasn't just a place of work. It had been her second home for 10 years. She had grown here, not just professionally, but personally. She had become more confident, more open, more resilient, and the people here, whether they knew it or not, had helped shape her into who she was. Suddenly, someone handed her a microphone. Speech! Speech! The crowd chanted playfully. Sarah laughed nervously and stepped forward. The room quieted. She took a deep breath. Thank you all, she began, her voice calm but emotional. This place, this team has meant so much to me. 10 years ago, I walked in here, nervous and unsure. I leave today full of memories, lessons, and a heart full of gratitude. She paused, choosing her next words carefully. We've spent so much time together, days filled with meetings, projects, problems, and solutions. We celebrated wins, and we survived losses. But the truth is, the most meaningful parts were not the projects or the presentations. They were the little things, the smiles in the hallway, the nods during tough meetings, the good mornings and see you tomorrows. She looked at her teammates, many now blinking back tears. There were so many things we never said, not because we didn't want to, but because we didn't think we had to. But I'll say them now. To each of you, thank you for being part of my journey, for the help, the laughter, the kindness. I've learned something from every single one of you. She smiled. I'm excited for the next chapter, but I'll carry this team in my heart. You've all made a bigger difference in my life than you know. The room erupted in applause, and a few people wiped their eyes. Someone hugged her tightly, whispering, "We'll miss you so much." And this time, she believed it. Not just as a polite thing to say, but as a real truth. After the party, Sarah stayed behind for a few minutes. The room was quieter now. The balloons still floated gently, and the banner waved softly in the air from the fan. She walked to her desk, now mostly empty. Just a notebook and a mug remained. She picked them up slowly, looked around one last time, and smiled. She thought about the silence that often filled the lunchroom. Not cold, but quiet. Everyone had their own world, their own thoughts. But beneath that silence, there had been connection, quiet support, unspoken care. She didn't regret anything, but she did wish they had spoken more. Not about tasks and deadlines, but about dreams and worries, about who they were beyond their job titles. Maybe that was the lesson, not to wait until the goodbye party to say the things that matter. As she stepped into the elevator for the last time, she felt lighter, not just because she was leaving, but because she had finally said what she needed to say. And maybe, just maybe, she had reminded others to do the same before it was their turn to leave. The doors closed gently, and the floor numbers ticked down. Sarah smiled, holding the photo frame tightly in her hands. She wasn't just saying goodbye to a job, she was saying goodbye to a chapter of her life, one filled with silent friendships, hidden strength, and quiet love. And as the elevator reached the ground floor, she stepped out, ready for whatever came next, carrying 10 years of unspoken words now finally understood.